Well, we've got some breaking news and constantly evolving news on the trade war front. Coming out of the G7 meeting this weekend, the president, Donald Trump, was asked by a reporter, hey, you got any regrets or second thoughts about this recent escalation with China? Because, of course, on Friday there was a serious escalation in the trade war that some of you may recall, in which China decided to call the president's bluff, and before he raised tariffs on them on September 1st, they decided to raise tariffs on the U.S. On December 1st too, and of course, or September 1st, and of course September 1st in China will come before September 1st in the U.S. So China is actually going to be front-running the president's new tariffs, and they're really trying to show him up and puffing their chest out and ruffling their peacock feathers. And in response to this on Friday, the president decided to say, you know what? Not only are we not backing down now that China's decided to raise tariffs, the U.S. now in response will raise tariffs even more. And then he said that he is ordering U.S. companies to get out of China and not do business with Chinese people anymore, and that we're done with this, and I order you to get out now. And after this, the stock market tanked, which is not something that the president ever wants to see. The president considers the stock market to be a huge barometer of his presidency. To him, the proof that he's been a successful president is that, stocks are up significantly since he took office. And so one might think that the president may regret doing something in this case that caused stocks to plummet, at least for one day. We don't know what will happen tomorrow morning, but on Monday. But the expectations are that it's not going to be pretty. And so in response to that question that I referenced at the beginning, to where Trump was asked if he had any second thoughts about escalating the trade war with China, he said, yeah, sure, why not? And the reporter, somewhat dumbfounded, said, wait, really? You have second thoughts about the trade war? And he said, yeah, I have second thoughts about everything, which is about the most Trumpian comment I could ever imagine. And as far as our economy is concerned, that's a very positive comment, because if Trump's starting to have second thoughts about the trade war and he realizes perhaps that escalating the trade war is not going to lead to anything good, and certainly it will not help his re-election chances, perhaps he will backtrack and do a mea culpa and say, you know what, let's just forget about this trade war stuff and go about the way things were, which, is not the perfect situation, but it's better than the alternative of, wrecking international trade relations. And so on this news, the futures markets, which are only open in Europe, I believe, right now, U.S. futures don't open until 6:30 p.m. tonight. The futures that I was looking at, they were not positive, but they were not as negative as they had been this morning. And so Trump's comment saying that he was having some second thoughts did help the markets out a bit, which again is the president's number one concern. However, the Chinese, upon hearing this news, decided to do a victory lap. And they said, haha, see, here's the proof. President Trump knows that he can't take on China and win, that he needs us more than we need him, and that he's going to have to do he's going to have to do a lot more backpedaling before things get better. And I don't know if it was in response to the comments from the Chinese or perhaps just from everyone in general who pretty much saw that what the president was doing was backpedaling, or at least that's how it was being interpreted, what the president said. Perhaps it was just an offhand remark, which honestly, knowing Trump, I could just see him, without putting much thought into it, saying, sure, I have second thoughts about everything. Trying to be somewhat open-minded. That's what I meant when I said that's a very Trumpian comment. That doesn't necessarily mean that he wants to take back the tariffs. It just means, sure, I think about stuff. When he said second thoughts, he's like, yeah, I think about this all the time. I have second thoughts, I have third thoughts, I have fourth thoughts. And so the White House spokesperson had to come out and clarify what Trump said. And apparently, according to the White House Spox, the press is completely misinterpreting what Trump said. He's not saying that he regrets starting the trade war and that he regrets the escalation on Friday or anything like that. What he regrets is not raising tariffs even higher, which is a pretty nutso statement if you're trying to prop up the stock market. So perhaps the president's gotten to the point to where he realizes that he has to choose one or the other, the trade war or the stock market, because you can't have both. If he's going to keep stocks up, and help his chances for re-election. He definitely can't have a trade war, because even without the trade war, I think it'd be very difficult to keep stocks up all the way through the 2020 election. But if Trump tries to go halfway on both and tries to have it both ways, what he's probably going to end up with is a crappy stock market and a failed trade war. And so the president at some point is going to have to choose one or the other. And so perhaps this weekend, what we're seeing in this, with him ordering the companies to get out of China and actually citing a law, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, I believe is what it's called. That is a law that essentially allows the president to stop companies from trading with certain groups. It's never been used on this wide of a scale before, but it is, an example of Congress, again, handing over power to the executive and legislating away their own authority. So if Congress wants to get mad about it now, it's kind of a little late. This law was passed in 1977. But if Trump is seriously thinking about citing this law, and in fact trying to take executive action to stop trade between the U.S. and China, he's definitely not picking the stock market in his choice between having a trade war or a stock market. That's definitely in the trade war camp, because the stock market would not survive something like that. The U.S. economy would not survive something like that. Well, I shouldn't say that. It would survive, but it would go into a recession. And so Trump may very well, at this point, just accept that there's going to be a recession, and he's going to try and talk his way out of it and saying that it's necessary and that the trade war is working and that and blame the Fed and stuff, which again, the Fed deserves plenty of blame on their own, but the Fed didn't cause the trade war. But I really have trouble believing that Trump will be able to fully implement his order to U.S. companies to stop doing business with China, because that would hurt every sector of the economy severely. Even if you take American manufacturing itself, products that are stamped made in America, those products, I guarantee you, every single one of them has at least one part in them that was made in China and then was assembled in the U.S. Everything, because I know people who are in manufacturing and they have products that say right on the box, made in USA. But there are certain parts in those things that they buy from Chinese vendors. There are chips and things. There are, hydraulic, pumps and all sorts of little arcane parts that go into things. If you take a company like Caterpillar, who makes, a lot of their products in a house, a lot of their parts, I'm sure there are some certain components in a Caterpillar dozer that are made in China. So this idea that companies can just one day lob off trade with China and stop trading with China, and then all of a sudden find suppliers for every other part, in another country, is insane. So needless to say, I will be following this very closely, and if you gained anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate it if you like and share this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day, and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.